Your neighbor waves at you every morning. You wave back. He thinks you work in government contracting. Something boring. Something with spreadsheets. Something that explains why you keep odd hours and never talk about your job at the block party. You have rehearsed this version of yourself so thoroughly that you almost believe it. You are not who he thinks you are. You are Delta, 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta. And the first thing they taught you, before the weapons, before the tactics, before they handed you gear that doesn't appear in any public inventory, is how to be invisible in plain sight. Not in a jungle, not behind enemy lines, in a suburb, at a grocery store, at your kid's soccer game on a Saturday afternoon while your phone is buzzing with a tasking that will take you to a continent your family will never know you visited. The selection process that brought you here was not advertised. There was no application. There was an assessment, physical, psychological, cognitive, and conducted under conditions designed to produce failure. Land navigation in the Appalachians alone, carrying weight that accumulates meaning with every mile. No map markers, no pace count verification, a time standard you were never told. You finished or you didn't. Most didn't. The ones who passed were not necessarily the fastest or the strongest. They were the ones who, at hour 16 in the dark, in the rain, with nothing left to give, gave more anyway. Inside the compound, your rank stopped mattering the day you arrived. Colonels and sergeants eat at the same table. First names, call signs. The culture doesn't perform hierarchy. It performs results. 4 to 6 men per team. Each team a closed system capable of functioning without resupply, without reinforcement, without anyone knowing they were ever there. Your equipment does not have model numbers in any catalog you can access. Your optics process darkness into something resembling daylight. Your weapons are tuned to tolerances that factory specifications don't cover. You have trained with this equipment for so many hours that the distinction between tool and body has dissolved. Tonight, a folder landed on a table in a room with no windows. Location redacted, target name redacted. Timeline. 36 hours. What the folder does tell you. 1 structure, 2 floors, 1 person inside who needs to leave alive. You will execute. You will succeed, or something very bad will happen. And when it's over, regardless of which, the world will continue without knowing the question was ever asked. That is not a side effect of this work. That is the entire point. Every instinct your body has spent a lifetime developing is telling you to surface. Every instinct is wrong. The water is the kind of cold that doesn't announce itself gradually. It arrives all at once. A full body verdict. Your hand stopped being fully useful 14 minutes ago. That is acceptable. You don't need your hands for this phase. You need your fins, your rebreather, and the specific variety of stubbornness that BUD/S spent 6 months attempting to locate inside you. Basic underwater demolition/SEAL training. Coronado, California. 24 weeks of structured suffering designed not to build you into something new, but to find out what was already there when everything comfortable was removed. Hell Week arrives in week 3. 5.5 days of continuous physical evolution on no sleep, in cold water, in sand that works its way into places sand was never meant to reach. Approximately 75% of each class does not finish. They are not weak. Many of them are exceptional athletes, decorated soldiers, men who passed every prior standard the military placed in front of them. What Hell Week measures is something that does not appear on any fitness test. The decision, made at the cellular level, that quitting is a worse outcome than continuing. You made that decision somewhere around hour 79, in water that was 49 degrees, with an instructor 12 inches from your face explaining in vivid detail why you should quit. You didn't. Now you belong to a community of roughly 2,500 active operators who do this work in every ocean, on every coastline, in every time zone where American interests require a presence that cannot be acknowledged. The trident on your chest, the Budweiser as it's called, is not a symbol of what you survived. It is a contract about what you will continue to endure. Tonight, you are 30 meters from a pier, in a harbor that does not know you are here. The rebreather leaves nothing on the surface. No bubbles, no ripple, no evidence. You are listening to the guard rotation above you with the patience of someone who has learned that timing is not a preference. It is the only variable between success and catastrophe. The guard changes, a specific sound, a specific pause. You move. Nobody on that pier will remember anything unusual about tonight. That is not luck. That is the ocean keeping your secret because you earned the right to ask it to. The canyon is not on the chart. The gap between the ridgelines is approximately 40 feet wider than your rotor span, approximately because the last person who measured it precisely did not have the instrument package you have, and was not moving at the speed you are moving, and was almost certainly not doing it in complete darkness at an altitude that commercial aviation regulations would describe as illegal under any circumstance other than this one. You fly through it anyway. You are a Night Stalker, and a pilot or crew member of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, based at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The regiment exists for a single, non-negotiable purpose: to put other units exactly where they need to be, at exactly the moment they need to be there, in conditions that would ground every other aircraft in the inventory. Delta cannot reach the objective without you. DEVGRU cannot. The Rangers cannot. The most capable ground combat force in human history is, without you, a very well-armed group of men standing next to an airfield. You fly MH-60M Blackhawks and MH-47 G Chinooks with modifications that are not published anywhere. Baffled rotors that reduce acoustic signature to something approaching silence. Terrain following radar that reads the earth ahead of you and adjusts in real time. Quad tube night vision that converts total darkness into a usable image with enough depth perception to thread a needle at 100 knots. The standard is plus or minus 30 seconds, not as a goal, as a floor, because the assault force has synchronized every element of their movement to your arrival time, and 31 seconds late means the breach happens without air cover. 31 seconds late in this business is a different mission than the one that was planned. Tonight you're carrying a Delta element into a valley that does not appear on unclassified maps. No lights, no radio emissions, terrain clearance measured not in hundreds of feet, but in the kind of margins that make your crew chief grip something that isn't a handle. You place them on the target, you pull back. You orbit in the dark and you wait, because when that radio call comes, and it will come, you need to already be close. Night Stalkers don't quit. That is the motto. It is also a precise description of what happened in Mogadishu in 1993, when a helicopter went down and the regiment flew back into the fire. Not because they were ordered to, because that is what the motto means. You have been in this country for 6 months. You have fired your weapon exactly once. A warning shot at a dog on a road at 2 in the morning that you should not have been on. You have won 3 significant tactical engagements without it. This confuses people who think special operations means kicking doors. You are a Green Beret, MOS 18 series, assigned to a 12-man Operational Detachment Alpha, the smallest fully autonomous combat formation in the American military. Every man on your team carries at least 2 specialties. Your 1-8D medic performed an improvised surgical procedure 4 weeks ago in a compound with no electricity, no running water, and a patient who would have died inside the hour without intervention. Your 18E communications sergeant can bounce a satellite signal off the ionosphere from a valley that doesn't appear on commercial mapping software. Your weapons sergeant can field, strip, diagnose, and repair the small arms of 11 different nations, including several that the United States does not officially acknowledge supplying. The mission is unconventional warfare. It has been the mission since President Kennedy placed the Green Beret on your predecessors' heads in 1961 and told them to go build other people's armies. You do not fight the war. You construct the architecture through which other people fight it. You recruit, you assess, you train, equip, advise, and most critically, you step back and watch, which is the hardest thing any soldier is ever asked to do. Tonight, the partner force you spent 4 months building from a collection of willing men into something resembling a coherent fighting unit is executing their first fully independent raid. You are 200 meters back, thermal optic, radio on, finger nowhere near a trigger, because the moment you intervene is the moment this becomes your operation instead of theirs, and your operation is worth 1 night. Their operation, if you do this right, is worth the next decade. They clear the compound in 7 minutes. 2 minor timing errors. Nothing that cost anyone anything. You note both. You will correct them tomorrow with the quiet precision of a coach who knows the difference between a mistake that matters and one that is simply part of learning. You will receive no credit for this. The partner force commander will brief his superiors. His name will be in the report. 6 months, 3 villages, 0 headlines. The Green Beret's entire professional purpose is to make himself unnecessary. to build something capable enough that it no longer needs him, and then to leave it standing. The best mission you ever ran is one nobody needed you for by the end. 12 hours ago, you were in a briefing room in a building that does not have a public address. The objective was a single slide, an airfield, a country, a time on target that, when someone read it aloud, produced no reaction from anyone in the room, because reaction is something that happens to people who have not already made their peace with the answer. 6 hours ago, you were rehearsing. Same sequence, same distances, same decision points. Your body has run this specific pattern enough times that your nervous system executes it before your conscious mind finishes forming the instruction. This is not instinct. Instinct is something you are born with. This is something different, a kind of manufactured certainty that only exists on the other side of 10,000 repetitions. 11 minutes ago, the ramp opened. You are a Ranger, one of approximately 3,500 soldiers in the 75th Ranger Regiment, the Army's direct action raid force, not an advisory force, not a partnership building force, a force that seizes objectives through violence of action and holds them until someone else arrives to take over the problem. The Rangers take the door down. Everyone else walks through it. Ya passed RASP, the Ranger Assessment and Selection Program. 8 weeks at Fort Moore, Georgia. 50% attrition. You survived Ranger School after that. 62 days across the mountains of Dahlonega, the swamps of Florida, the pine forests of Fort Moore, running on 4 hours of sleep and a daily caloric intake that a registered dietitian would classify as a medical emergency. By week 3, men in your class were hallucinating, not metaphorically, actually seeing things. By week 5, they had stopped caring about anything except the man directly in front of them, which is, it turns out, precisely the mental state Ranger School was designed to produce. 3 minutes ago, the Jumpmaster tapped your shoulder. 2 minutes ago, your canopy opened at 800 feet above an airfield that belongs technically to someone else. 40 seconds ago, your boots hit the ground. You are moving 800 meters at a dead run toward a perimeter that does not yet know it is a perimeter. Around you, 89 other men are doing exactly the same thing in exactly the same sequence, because that is what 12 hours of preparation and 10,000 repetitions produces. The airfield will be secure in 11 minutes. 40 minutes after that, the follow-on force lands on a runway that someone else already bled to clear. Rangers lead the way. It is the motto. It is also tonight a precise geographic fact. The Marine Corps spent 60 years insisting it did not need a dedicated special operations force. It had infantry. It had force recon. It had the institutional conviction that every Marine was, by definition, already special. Then it built MARSOC anyway, activated it on February 24th, 2006, contributed it to U.S. Special Operations Command, and proceeded to tell almost nobody about it. This is somehow very on brand. You are a Marine Raider assigned to a 14-man Marine Special Operations team. You passed the assessment and selection course. 3 weeks at Camp Lejeune, designed specifically to determine whether you will quit under sustained pressure that has no clear endpoint, no visible finish line, and no explanation for why it is still happening. Most candidates quit. You did not quit, partly because of the training, and partly because the Marine Corps had spent years building into you a specific relationship with discomfort that made quitting feel structurally impossible. Your mission set covers direct action, special reconnaissance, and foreign internal defense. The same work the original Raider battalions did across the Pacific in 1942, with different equipment and identical instincts. Arrive from the sea, operate in small teams, leave the area more capable of defending itself than you found it. The men of the 1st and 2nd Raider battalions did this with bolt-action rifles and rubber boats. You do it with encrypted communications and thermal optics. The water, in both cases, is still cold. Tonight, a partner force you have spent 5 months training is executing a compound assault you helped design. You are in the support position, night vision up, radio monitoring, available but determined not to be needed. They execute. Near perfect, one timing error on the breach, the kind that costs nothing tonight but will cost something eventually if it isn't corrected. You note it with the detached precision of someone who has learned that the difference between a good partner force and a great one is 10,000 small corrections made before any of them become large ones. You will correct it tomorrow. The culture is Marine Corps to its foundation, which means the standards are brutal, the humor is dark, the complaints are constant, and the work gets done regardless of all three. The Raiders do not seek recognition. The Marine Corps does not encourage it. The work is the work. The intelligence package said 4 armed men. There are 7. You registered the discrepancy in the time it takes most people to notice something feels different about a room. You have already recalculated. You are already moving. This is what DEVGRU selects for. Not speed, not strength, not even tactical proficiency, though all 3 are assumed before you ever walk through the door of Green Team. What the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, it formerly SEAL Team 6, officially unacknowledged, operationally omnipresent, selects for is a specific cognitive architecture. The ability to process incomplete information under collapsing timelines and produce correct decisions faster than conscious thought normally allows. The kind of mind that, when the situation changes in ways the intelligence community failed to anticipate, does not freeze, does not escalate blindly, but recalibrates with a precision that looks from the outside like something close to calm. You were a SEAL for 5 years before you were eligible to attempt this. 5 years of deployments, of operational tempo that has not meaningfully slowed since September 2001, of building the experience base that Green Team will now attempt to stress fracture over the course of 6 to 8 months. Approximately half of the candidates who enter Green Team, and men who are already among the most experienced special operations personnel in the American military, do not complete it. They are not inadequate. The evaluation is simply looking for something more specific than excellence. It is looking for a particular way of being excellent under the precise conditions that Tier 1 operations produce. The political stakes are national. The timeline has already compressed past what was planned, and the decision you make in the next 3 seconds will determine whether this becomes a success or a congressional inquiry. Tonight the mission is maritime interdiction, a vessel underway in open ocean. Fast rope insertion from a helicopter onto a deck that is moving in 3 directions simultaneously, multiple levels, minimal light, an objective somewhere below that does not know you are descending toward it from the dark. You have rehearsed this specific scenario in varying configurations, hundreds of times. You know the difference between training and execution. Training is the same scenario with role players on the other side of the door. Execution is the same scenario with people who will genuinely attempt to kill you on the other side of the door. The technique is identical. The weight of the knowledge is not. The world knows your unit's most famous night. Your unit does not discuss it. The organization that officially does not exist does not celebrate the thing it officially did not do. You are the asset governments reach for when every other option has already failed. That is not a burden. That is the entire job description. You jumped first. You always jump first. You landed alone in hostile territory carrying 90 pounds of radios, laser designators, batteries, and medical supplies with a specific and somewhat unreasonable task. Turn a patch of dirt into a functional airfield before the aircraft carrying everyone else arrive. No ground team, no security element, just you, the dark, and a deadline measured in minutes rather than hours. You are a combat controller attached to the 24th Special Tactics Squadron, the Air Force's only Tier 1 unit assigned to Joint Special Operations Command, operating alongside Delta and DEVGRU on missions that do not appear in press releases. You hold an FAA certification that would qualify you for a 6-figure salary at any commercial airline in the country. You are currently lying in a drainage ditch, calling coordinates into a radio, while a Ranger element 40 meters to your left takes fire from a tree line 300 meters north. You key the radio. You are talking to an F/A-18 at 25,000 feet. You feed coordinates, elevation, wind data. You mark the target with a laser invisible to every human eye on the ground except yours and the pilot's targeting pod. You speak in the precise, unhurried cadence of someone who has learned that urgency and panic produce identical vocal signatures, and only one of them is useful. 9 seconds later, the tree line is a memory. The Rangers resume movement. Tech Sergeant John Chapman did this alone, wounded on a mountainside at Takur Ghar, Afghanistan in March of 2002. Held an entrenched enemy position after his team was forced to withdraw, fought until he could not, and was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously for actions that protected a rescue force that never knew until years later exactly what he had done to keep them alive. He is the reason the 24th STS exists in the public consciousness at all, which is to say, barely. They are the quietest unit on this list. For a list that includes organizations the Department of Defense has never officially confirmed, that is a meaningful distinction. Without the 24th, every other unit here is capable, impressive, dangerous. With the 24th, they have the sky. You have been watching the same man for 47 days. You know his coffee order. You know which knee bothers him when the weather changes. Left knee. Always the left, a slight favoring of his right leg on mornings after rain that he has probably stopped noticing himself. You know which of his 3 phones he uses for which category of conversation. You know the name of the cafe owner he trusts and the name of the one he doesn't, and you know the difference matters because the one he doesn't trust has a cousin in a ministry, and that detail will appear in the target package you are assembling with the quiet thoroughness of someone who understands that the operators who eventually use this information will have approximately 4 minutes to act on what took you 47 days to collect. You are the Intelligence Support Activity, Task Force Orange, an organization whose designation has changed multiple times specifically because the previous designation became known, which tells you everything you need to understand about how seriously this unit takes its own anonymity. ISA was created in 1981 after the Iran hostage crisis exposed a structural failure at the center of American special operations. The missions were exceptional, the operators were exceptional, and the intelligence underpinning both was chronically, lethally insufficient. The military kept sending its best people into situations they did not fully understand and kept paying a price that was entirely preventable. ISA exists to make that price unpayable by ensuring it never has to be paid. You deploy in teams of 2 to 4 weeks or months ahead of any assault force into environments where the simple act of looking out of place is a mission-ending event. Your cover is not a uniform with a different patch. It is a life, an apartment, a routine, a carefully constructed pattern of existence that the neighborhood finds unremarkable enough to ignore. You map every weakness in the target's world, every vulnerability, every predictable moment when the distance between what he believes is true and what is actually true becomes actionable. Today he arrived at the cafe 4 minutes early. You noted it. You adjusted the timeline estimate in the package by 6 minutes and flagged it upstream. Somewhere downstream, a team is studying a folder that exists entirely because you spent 47 days drinking mediocre coffee across the street from a man who will never know your name. You will never know what happened in the room. You already know it was possible because of you. That is enough. It has to be. You are not a soldier anymore. Soldiers have dog tags. Soldiers have a chain of command that traces upward through ranks and regulations to something resembling accountability. Soldiers, when captured, have the Geneva Convention. Imperfect, inconsistently honored, but present. You have a passport that identifies you as an agricultural equipment consultant from a city you have visited exactly once to walk the streets and memorize enough details to answer questions convincingly if someone who matters decides to ask them. You left the military. Specifically, you left JSO SAFE, Delta or DEVGRU or the 24th STS or the Ranger Regimental Reconnaissance Company. After 10 to 15 years of deployments that you have genuinely lost count of, because at a certain point the number stops being a useful metric for anything. You signed different papers, you joined the CIA's Special Activities Center, Ground Branch, which recruits exclusively from the Tier 1 community for the specific reason that the work requires people who have already proven, across a decade of the hardest operations the military conducts, that they can be trusted with this level of autonomy, this level of risk, and this particular permanent variety of silence. Ground Branch exists to conduct covert action under Title 50 authority, operations that the United States government can plausibly deny, which is a legal phrase that means if this goes wrong, the government you serve will confirm only that it has no knowledge of your existence. You carry no military identification. Your cover is backstopped by an organization that is itself only partially acknowledged. You are operating at the outermost edge of what a nation is willing to do and the outermost edge of what it is willing to admit. Ground Branch was the first American element into Afghanistan after September 11th, 2001. On the ground weeks before the military, moving through the dark with Northern Alliance commanders, carrying cash in amounts that would be difficult to explain, calling in the airstrikes that dismantled the Taliban's conventional military capability before the first uniformed soldier crossed the border. They were first into Iraq. They have operated in countries that have never appeared in any report, any hearing, any news cycle connected to American activity. There is is a wall at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. On it are stars, 141 of them, each representing an officer killed in the line of service. Some of those stars have names in the Book of Honor beneath them. Some do not. The names remain classified. The people they represent existed, served, and died in the employ of a government that cannot publicly acknowledge any of those three facts. You knew this when you signed the papers. You signed them anyway. Not because the silence is easy, because the work requires it, and the work is the only thing that has ever felt to you entirely worth doing. Your neighbor waves at you every morning. You wave back. He thinks you consult for an agricultural firm. He finds you quiet, polite, unremarkable. He has no idea that the most consequential work being done on this street is happening behind the most ordinary face he sees every day. There is no ceremony for this. There is no ceremony for most things that matter.